Hi, everybody. So this is our fourth or fifth meeting. We are August 30th, and it's Labor Day weekend, looks like, and there isn't much people on this meeting, but let's go ahead and try to make a short one anyway. So we have with us Michael Onizuka, and we have Stephen A. West. Stephen is new in the team this week, so welcome aboard. I know there isn't anybody here except me that was here last meeting, so we're not going to go ahead and review last meeting's agenda because there's nobody to review that was present. What I have in the meeting agenda for this week was Active Directory in the things that are resolved. In the unfinished business, we had the forums module and active forums, contributing documentation, automated builds, the gallery module, the store module, the repository module. We had a possibility of having Stephen Fabian, but he's not in the meeting. So a lot of this will be postponed. Then we were supposed to talk about the extension catalog, documentation and issue templates, automatic release notes, and replacing source packages with debug packages. And I added absolutely nothing new to this meeting because I think we have enough ongoing to add anything new. You guys, anything you want to add on this agenda for today? Sounds right. Okay, so in the finished business, the Active Directory module, we thought it would not work in recent versions, but apparently it does, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. Stephen is actively submitting pull requests on that. You have write access, you have the access you need.
Right, yeah, I've got everything I need.
Cool. Is that something you want to maintain on the long term? Just to catch up the plan here, some people work just on anything and some people were assigned as official maintainers. The only difference is that if you're the official maintainer, people will not merge pull requests before letting you know, so you can kind of have a decision on the direction of the module. Would you like to be assigned a maintainer on this? I don't think anybody else had as many contributions on that one.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. I think I'm the only one contributing to it right now.
Awesome. So I'm gonna assign you as the maintainer. Just prevents people taking a direction without you knowing about it. We have Clint that joined us. Welcome, Clint.
Hello. I'm just stalking here.
You're driving?
No, I'm stalking your guys' meeting.
Oh, okay, because usually you're driving on my meetings.
Well, yeah, that is every third Thursday when I'm headed up for the Southern Pride DNN meeting.
Yeah.
Because it takes forever to get there.
So what I was saying before, I think it's the long weekend, and yeah, we don't have much people, so a lot of this will be postponed.
Yeah.
But Stephen just joined us. He did a lot of work on the Active Directory module, and he will now be the official maintainer.
Awesome.
Which is cool. And I sent you an invitation on Slack. You got that, right?
Me?
Stephen? Yeah?
Yeah, I did.
You got it? Okay. So anything we want to discuss in between meetings, we can do there. Okay, then we had the forums and active forums discussion. Well, this is going to be more of a status update than anything because Sebastian is not here. Last meeting, he said he would speak with Ilpo Juvender about maybe joining this group. He showed interest in maintaining the old forum module. And regarding active forums, I'm still waiting a reply from Seth Follickman. We got an exchange of emails, but he seems to take weeks between replies, and yeah, we're between two things. Contributing MD template has been done, and I think everybody viewed it and showed any changes they wanted. So the contributing MD file that is on the, I forgot to note it here. I think it's on the wiki project. Basically has no, I think it's in the reports. Reports contributing. So that would be the base template we would use on all the core modules. It explains a little bit how to contribute. Plus, I added a link here that points to a YouTube playlist that shows people how to get the tools needed for DNN development, how to set up your DNN environment locally, a little bit about how GitHub works, and then there's 3 examples submitting a pull request for a module, for the platform, and for the Persona Bar project. So it's linked into the contributing MD here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this into each of the core modules that does not have a contributing MD, and people can customize it from there if there's any specific change, and if not, we're going to have a base for all of the projects. Welcome, Mr. David. David, did we skip anything that you were involved in? No. Okay.
Hello, sorry, I was having Zoom problems there.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so that's standby, that's standby. So this here.
Have you all talked about the, sorry for joining a little bit late, but oops, hearing an echo. Have you talked about the documentation stuff yet? Or?
We talked about the contributing MD, which is currently in the reports module. That would be the base template we would use for the other modules, and then specific maintainers can modify it as required. As far as really documentation, it's further down the list. It's right here. So yeah, we're going to discuss about this. There's a lot of stuff we're going to postpone because the people that would need to speak about that are not present today. So automated builds, we're going to postpone that to next meeting. The gallery module I was working, I converted it to C#. There's a lot of errors due to the conversion, and there's a lot of work to be done on that one. I didn't have enough time in one block to do good work on that module, so I'm postponing this until I have more free time. So I'm going to mainly be doing shorter pull requests and stuff on other modules, and it's down in the list of the most popular ones, so it's not something very rush. So I'm going to postpone that. I think my time would be better invested for now in other modules. The store module, Sebastian mentioned on last meeting he would get in touch with Gilles Lepigochet about it. He was the official maintainer of that module a long time ago. He moved it from Codeplex to GitHub last year, and just yesterday he submitted a couple commits, And there was also a discussion on Slack that he got in touch with, I have to check, but anyway, so we're trying to invite him into the group and see if it could be again the maintainer for that module and move it into the community platform. The repository module, yeah, Sebastian, which is not here this meeting, wanted to get in touch with Steve Fabian. So this I'm gonna go and write that. Let's do this on that one, and this we're gonna push it to the next meeting. Okay, extensions catalog. So David, I know last meeting we talked, you were playing around a little bit with GitHub APIs. That was kind of being coordinated with Ernst, Mike, David, and you're the only one on this meeting. Anything you want to discuss about this?
Yeah, I've made quite a bit of progress on working against the APIs, but I've been doing that in the context of a mobile app, which I hope to have launched within the next few weeks here. But it looks like some very promising stuff. And one thing I was able to do was to speak with Timo, who has the open content implementation for the extensions directory on the DNN Connect site. And the idea was that we would try to integrate some GitHub stats there through that and try to grow that. At first glance, it looked like a really good idea, and it may still be a good idea. But right now, all of those extensions that are on there are not GitHub based. Some of them have GitHub information associated with them and some don't. So I think some restructuring of the structured content might be in order there in order to really be able to move forward to that. But that being said, I do have the source, and Timo agreed that we could put that into a repo in the DNN community GitHub organization and maintain that there moving forward. So I've had that on my list to get committed, the initial commit done, but I have not done that yet. So that's really kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I know Ernst started it with open content just to move fast and have something to try on, but it was, I think, in the plans to make that into an actual module. So that would be more flexible. We could, for instance, have a GitHub, well, we could have the project source link, and if GitHub is in it, then we know it's a GitHub project and we can pull, so can filter based on that.
Yeah, you know, it's a pretty solid solution the way that it is. I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit on the fence about it. It's like if somebody really has time to make it into a module, it probably could be better to maintain moving forward. That being said, I think we can do what we want to do within the context of open content. It's already there. It's structured. Make a few tweaks here and there and pull it in. It's just that, you know, anybody that's working on it would have to have some knowledge on how open content works. The other challenge too is having the database, you know, really there. So that's actually part of the solution. And if you're familiar with the way open content works, is kind of keeps all the content within a flat file there. So that has pros and cons, obviously, but becomes a little bit challenging to set up your environment and, you know, and work on it. It's not like working on a module. So I guess there's pros and cons to it being that way. Definitely can do things fast. And Timo was the one that originally developed that for EPT, by the way. So,
okay.
Yep. So we could leverage him and his experience because they've used open content for years. But I think first step is probably just getting it into a repo. So the question is, should we put that in the repo, or should we have a conversation about making it a module instead and letting the repo be for that, or we can just set up 2 repos. That's an idea, but it might be confusing to people. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
My personal vote would be to make it a module, but there's only me and you, and there's like 3 other persons involved. So I think we should push that into a meeting where the others are here too. But yeah, so there's progress, and it's still to be completed.
I will say I've been really impressed with the GitHub API. Sometimes you have to jump through some hoops to get to the data, but there's so much more available via the API than is surfaced through the UI currently on github.com. So I am pretty excited about that. There are some limitations as to how many calls you can make every minute and so forth like that. So the trick really comes into calling the right calls to get the data that you want, and not have to make 5 calls and aggregate the data or calculate on what you want to get and all that. So it's kind of interesting. I'm still green at it, but I'm really liking it.
Awesome. And that would be one of the advantages to make it into a module, because we could cache that data in a database and only pull it when it's old.
It's true.
Save some requests. Okay, so David,
I'd be happy to share some screenshots if you'd like of the
sure.
of the actual mobile app. I'm trying to figure out how I would do that. Give me just a minute here.
I need to enable something. Hold on a second.
Hold on, because I'm not even sure if I have them on this computer. I developed the mobile app on my Mac, and right now I'm on the PC. Let me see if I've got screenshots here, and then I'll circle back to you in a minute.
Yeah, and during that time, I'm looking for the way to video settings. Is it in here, or is it in there?
Hey, Clint, are you on the call?
I am here.
Do you know, did I actually send you images of that, or did I don't remember where I was at when I did that.
You talking about?
Is that in Slack?
I remember you sending them. Yes, I don't know which Slack channel.
That's what I was trying to remember.
I got them all open here. I'll click around a little bit, see what I can find.
Oh, you know what? I've probably got them on I've actually got a video on my phone. I could probably,
Do people still see my screen?
Yeah, I'm looking at a Google Doc.
Okay.
Hey, Daniel, I might be able to just send you this video via email, and then you could share that and let that run.
Yep.
Daniel, we do have a DNN digest going out in 2 weeks. So any updates from any of these modules will be greatly appreciated for the community update section.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you there.
The DNN digest?
Yes.
Going out in 2 weeks. Any updates from any of these modules would be great.
Okay, awesome.
Good info to include, I guess.
Video is too big to send via email. Let me put it on Dropbox, and I'll share it that way. You
can put it on the. You have access to the Google Drive, or.
Well, not from my phone here, so.
He's anti-Google, basically.
I got the video sitting on my phone here because that's where I was doing my dev testing.
He doesn't have the Google Drive app.
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, while we are working on that, yeah, you needed to say something about documentation. Okay, automatic release notes, that's not something you had.
While we envy quick wait.
Yeah.
This is going to take me a minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just trying to use the minutes we have to push back to the next meeting stuff that we're not going to talk today. So
Yeah, feel free to move forward and we can circle back to this later if you'd like.
Because Ernst had something about automatic release notes, but he's not with us, so we're going to push that. Replacing the source packages by debug packages, we touched that idea a little bit on last meeting, which ran too long. And there's a couple things we spoke really fast, but basically it would be implemented the way it's done with platform. So instead of having a source and release package, you have a release and a symbols package, which allows to help in debugging, because people who have problems in the error logs, it would show the line number where that error appears. So it really helps in debugging. So this is to be done, basically. So we discussed it last time, and as we work on each of the modules, and yeah, we discussed also we would name that debug zip instead of symbol zip. Awesome. So how's that going for the video?
I just posted in the comments there, but it's being shared with your info account now. It's about 55% uploaded to
Awesome.
Dropbox.
Was it you, David, in Slack that mentioned something about Gilles Pigochet? Or
I saw that Peter posted something
Peter.
about him today or earlier yesterday or something like that, where he was speaking with Vashink Vanassis about and was a bit on a rant about it kind of being removed or the form being turned off for that. But I don't think anybody knew that he was active.
No, because he moved the store about a year ago, and just yesterday he submitted the first commits to the repository, so we didn't see much activity. And yeah, it was in the plans to get in touch with him because he was the maintainer of the store module. And I know Sebastian mentioned he would try to get in touch too, and that was a couple weeks ago. And so yeah, we didn't think he was still active. Okay, let's try that again.
Hopefully I did that correctly and you've got an invite.
Yeah. There we go.
Hopefully it'll load up right there. Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Yep, awesome. Okay, so let's watch this.
I guess I can kind of narrate just a little bit here if I can talk over my echo. But I think I must be coming back through your speakers or something. Okay, there it goes.
Yeah, I lowered the speakers. I usually have it on a headset, and for some reason, it started on the speakers.
Gotcha. So those are just kind of intro screens there to get into it. But the idea of this is to help you really explore the open source DNN open source community. So right now you're looking at all the repositories that are in GitHub that are associated with DNN. Okay. And it'll load 30 of them at a time here, so you get a kind of a quick glance of what the repo is, and then now you're getting into the stats for the repo. The pull request is the only thing that's not correct in this particular video, but you'll see that you can look at all the releases, look at all the assets that were associated with the releases, get the download counts for it. That's not even accessible through the UI the way it is now. Seeing the top contributors, how many contributions they've made to it, and you can search here. So, just want to see all the themes. You can see what shows up right there and get to those very quickly. It's nice and quick and responsive. You can also visit the GitHub repository, which I think that's what's happening next. Yeah, you click the little GitHub icon in the top right, and it'll take you to the repo right away. Granted, a lot of people aren't going to be doing a whole lot on their mobile device, but this is great to see some quick stats, see how your own repos are going, other people's repos, who's involved. If you can't remember, who's involved, and see how popular something is. This gives you a great way to do that.
Yeah, it is awesome.
It's really kind of a starting point. I can see it growing quite a bit, especially when it gets out there and people can really chime in, and this will be an open source project too, so that people can contribute to it. Right now it's being built in Ionic 4.
So right now this is an app, or is it open content on a web?
This is a mobile app here. So it'll be launched as MV Quick Pulse under our little brand there, but it'll be open source project, the code and everything, so that the groundwork done here, to me, it was a whole lot easier to explore the API through an environment like this than it was to try to hack through the open content stuff. So figured this could bring some value to some people anyways. So we did this, and we'll open source this, and then what we've learned from here we can leverage to put into a module that we create, or a open or extending the open content solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Would it be a good idea to have kind of our own API that would aggregate all this information and be able to provide the data, and then a module and an app could consume that?
That's a really great idea, because part of the challenge with the API is that stats is usually some calculation of multiple data pieces, or looking at data over a period of time or something like that. There's not a whole lot right now currently in the stats portion of the GitHub API. They just didn't invest too much in that for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So the challenge really is going to the different endpoints, getting the data that you need, and then making the calculations. So I could definitely see value in what you're talking about there, where we pull that information, make the calculations that we want to make, and create our own.
And cache it.
Cache, exactly.
And then
this
a
app
module and an app and other things could consume that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, this is a real-time app, so it's hitting the API. What I'm doing is trying to make as few calls as possible, because I think the limit is like you can't make more than 10 API calls in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
With the way theirs works. So really trying to make sure I get the right data, in the period of time that you're going to need it. So that's the real limitation when you're doing the real-time stuff there. So,
and if that becomes an API that the module can consume and the app can consume, where would it be hosted?
Great question.
Great question. Okay. Is that something?
That might be the MV Quick Hub.
Yeah. Is NV open to that? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely be open to that.
Okay, awesome. It's fine with me. Cool. So, that was here. No, that was here. Extension catalog. Okay, so I'm gonna put there. David showed a wait a second. David worked on GitHub APIs. There we go. Some nice progress on that. Next, documentation and issue templates. Ernst is not with us, but basically he said a little bit on Slack that he played with what's the name, Jekyll and GitHub Pages, and he's thinking, and I'm thinking, it may be overkill for our needs, and it's the steep learning curve for someone who is mainly a Windows developer, Microsoft developer, and needs to install Linux subsystem and Linux tools and all that to generate HTML and CSS. So that's one. The other, it supports HTML and CSS standard too, and do we really need that for the core modules instead of the wiki? Anything you want to comment, David?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this one.
Okay.
So, and this may just be that we've got engineers looking at it and are over-engineering it, but you know, it's it works with just Markdown. So you really don't have to set up Jekyll locally on Windows or OS X or Linux or whatever. To actually get it set up, you can actually do it right all through the browser, you know, right there. It just automatically generates the pages. The only time you need Jekyll is if you want to run the documentation site locally while you're developing documentation. I personally don't do it that way. Not doing anything super complex, so I just update the docs folder in the repo and I point the GitHub pages to that, and then I go look at the GitHub pages site. I make the Markdown change, it shows on the GitHub page site, all good.
So directly on GitHub, it gets compiled into the web pages.
That's correct. You don't have to have any of that tooling set up locally at all in order to get it to work. So the reason I'm a big fan of this is because it allows people to contribute via Markdown to the documentation. And contribution process is much easier. Like if you use GitHub Wiki, you can't contribute unless you give them rights to edit the wiki or you open it publicly. There's no way to make a pull request against a wiki.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. 100% positive. The wiki is a repository in of itself, and you can
exactly. You can fork that.
Yes, you can. Well, no, you can't do that. But down at the bottom right,
sorry,
you can actually clone that repo there, but you cannot post issues against that repo. You can make pull requests against it. So what you end up with is a little bit of a quagmire in, you know, somebody will make an issue that could be, you could set up a issue template for documentation, for instance, and they could put an issue in there, but then the maintainer of the repo has to go and figure out how to put that documentation in there. So you end up spending a bunch of time. Nobody can actually contribute to the documentation easily. So that's why I'm a big fan of the GitHub pages. Although stuff about Jekyll is confusing, especially on a PC, but you don't have to have it in order. It's kind of missing the point a bit, because I think people that are going to contribute to it would just be making a change here or there, adding a new markdown file. And if the structure is set up, that's where the work is the initial work to actually get it set up. So if you are doing any kind of, like if you look at the MV Quick Theme documentation, it's a good example of like how a side menu would be used, for instance. So when you implement a theme, a GitHub Pages theme, yeah, if you click that link right up there in the top in the description.
Yep.
So this is a GitHub Pages thing, and over on the right, you've got a menu. So for more complex documentation, you probably want to have a side menu over here. Now the theme could look different. You know, there's many themes out there that you can use, but you have to know a little bit of YAML to do this, and that's really all there is to it. That's the hardest part, is figuring that out, but you don't have to have a local environment to figure that out. You just need to know how to edit that particular file and template.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to set one up or use it, you know, as an example on one of the repos to show how this will work.
Yeah, well, there's always, you know, many ways to skin a cat. So this, if we go with that approach, I think it would be nice to have a little paragraph of explaining this in the contributing MD, how to contribute in documentation.
Absolutely.
That's one option. The other option is it could also just be HTML and CSS. Jekyll is not needed for GitHub Pages. It's just that it gives you a template styling, right?
Well, that's sort of not completely correct. Behind the scenes, Jekyll is being used to generate the pages, but all that happens mysteriously behind the scenes on the way that GitHub Pages runs. If you switch it to HTML and CSS, it becomes more difficult because then nobody can contribute that doesn't know HTML and CSS, right? That's why GitHub Pages makes a lot of sense to use Markdown, because it's much easier to, you know, it's something that people are familiar with.
Yes, yeah, I could see a situation where people would like to contribute in documentation, but they have no coding experience at all. So pretty much everybody who codes knows HTML and CSS, but okay.
Pretty much, yep. But people that don't, you know,
it's true.
Can probably hack their way through Markdown pretty easily. But if you go back to the actual repo for the quick thing I'll show you just very quickly, in the docs directory, that's where everything lives. So you'll see it's just a bunch of Markdown pages, but you'll see a few things like config YAML. That's kind of how you configure it. And then the actual theme, that's pointing to the theme, you know, to it. And that's the hardest part of the whole thing, is figuring out how that front matter stuff works there.
And we could have a theme that is DNN branded.
That's correct. We could.
We could build that.
Absolutely.
And does the theme reside
in layouts? Yep. If you go to layouts, and there's the default HTML right there. That is the template itself.
Okay, and there's tokens that get replaced in here and stuff.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it looks great. And then let's say you want to add a new page. You just create a new MD file, and it's automatically included, or is there some index that has
so in this case, you'd have to go back to, I mean, yes, if you go to the data, _data, this is where I maintain my navigation data.
Okay.
So if you're going to add a new MD file, for instance, you know, under the appendix, then you would put that page URL pair in there. So the page is the name of the page that creates the link, and then the URL is the link that it goes to. And that can be, it ultimately gets translated to HTML. That's why it's referencing HTML files there, but in the source is Markdown.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's a little confusing, you know, but this only really happens if you're adding a new page that doesn't already exist. And if you do have a side navigation, which most more complex documentation is going to have anyway. So.
Yeah, because it depends on the project. Some need a lot of documentation. Some are so basic that one pager does it.
Exactly. And the one pager becomes astronomically simple. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't even have to have all that complex stuff I've got in there.
That's cool. So I like it, but I think we should have a little what we said today, you know, how this works and all this. We could add this to the contributing MD, and we could rediscuss this when we have a few more people, but I think it's nice. So
I think the biggest thing to overcome is the concept of the need or the lack of need to set up a local dev environment in order to do the documentation. It's not necessary, in my opinion, not even required. So there's no sense in letting that complexity play a part of our decision. It's really about the end user experience and allowing people to contribute.
Okay, that sounds nice. Now, I forgot to add it in the meeting, but next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, which is going to be the 13th. So September 13th, I may not be able to attend. Is there anybody who could host that meeting? Clint?
The 13th?
Yeah, in 2 weeks, the 13th, I may not be able to host the meeting. Now we have a couple options. We have a couple options. I think I can set up Zoom that the meeting happens even if I'm not here, and to program it to record in the cloud. Or someone takes charge of hosting that one, or we skip that one.
So on that day, I've got double booked. I'm already in a meeting during this meeting, so I wouldn't even be able to attend anyways.
Cool. David, any interest?
I could do it. Just need to end in time for the MVP meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to miss that one too. So. Okay, so do you have what you would need to host it, or we'll do some tests in Slack? I think I can leave it as is, so people who have the invitations use the same link.
I think the challenge becomes in recording. Let me see if I can actually record this. Hold on. Nope. You have to have permission from the host to record it. So, yeah, I would have to.
I think I can on my side. We would just have to do a little test, but I think I could schedule the meeting that it happens even if I'm not here. So anybody who joins, it just starts recording in the cloud. So anyway, we can organize that outside of the meeting here. So anything else we want to discuss on the recorded portion? So thanks everybody who attended, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.